line. When you are ready to begin the presentation, press the Start Broadcast button on the GoToWebinar control panel to allow all attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good morning everyone. We're going to start today's session. So yesterday we started the topic with DXE. DXE stands for a direct extractor connection. DXE is implemented in a sidecar scenario. When you have already BW business warehouse running in your landscape, now you want to implement HANA. The tables on the ECC, based on the tables on the ECC, standard data sources or user-defined data sources are created. I replicate these data sources to BW. Once we activate these data sources, the inbound layer of data source called PSA is generated. We have an object called info package. Once we execute this info package, the data from source system is transferred to BW via RFC connection into the PSA table, which is known as persistent staging area. The further distribution of data from PSA to the next level, to the DSO. DSO stands for Data Store Object. In order to connect PSA and Data Store Object, we have transformation. Transformation is an object to map source columns with the target columns. From DSO, the next level to transfer data is InfoCube. To transfer data from DSO to the InfoCube, again we use transformations. To map and to transfer data, we use DTP, data transfer process. So that is what we have seen yesterday. So basically in BW, you can transfer data to multiple objects from PSA to DSO, from DSO to InfoCube. To distribute data within BW, we use DTP, a data transfer process. To distribute data outside the BW to inside BW, outside to inside we use info package, within BW we use DTP. To map we use transformation. So now let me show you the data flow of BW. So log into the system. So let us log into the ECC system. Let us use the username and password. Let us enter the T code RSA1. So inside the ECC system, we have a T code called RSA1. RSA1 stands for Reporting System Administration. RSA1 stands for Reporting System Administration, which is also a data warehousing workbench modeling. Now you see, When we are inside the BW, now we actually log into the ECC system. ECC system also has an BW system inside. When we have a BW system inside ECC, this is known as embedded BW system. You can also have BW outside the ECC. This is known as standalone BW system. BW is on MS SQL. To implement to implement DXC, we need to have BW on MS SQL. If BW is on HANA, we cannot implement DXC. We cannot implement DXC if BW is on, because already it is on HANA, so we cannot implement DXC. So DXC can only be possible either you have BW inside the ECC system, BW outside the ECC system. Inside ECC, embedded BW. Basically, both are same, just like SLT inside ECC, SLT outside ECC. Basically, both are same. But what we are trying to do here is, we are trying to share the same hardware. We don't have a separate host for BW. We are using the same host, that of ECC to BW. Just we are trying to share the resources. So that's why that's why I logged into the ECC, and this is BW and HANA, whereas this is ECC. Now I'm inside the ECC system. Inside ECC system, enter the T code RSA1. Okay, so let us see yesterday's exercise. So we'll see yesterday's exercise. Tables associated to data source. Data sources are replicated to BW. From data source to DSO, from DSO to the cube. From data source to DSO, from DSO to the cube. And to transfer data from here to here, DTP. From DSO to the cube is DTP. The communication between ECC and BW, RFC. So let us perform this exercise first. So once we see this data flow, nothing but flow of data from ECC to BW, then we see how to implement DXC. After we complete this exercise, we can go for DXC. So let us go to S11. Click enter. Jet CE1 COPA table. We remember we created this table for SLT. Let's click display, click contents, and click execute. So we have this table already. So I'm going to use this table for data source. So based on this table, so this is the name of the table. So this is the name of the table. Based on this table, I'm going to create data source. So data sources are created in RSO2. We can create data source in RSO2 T code. I'll go back, click back and back, RSO2, enter, maintain generic data sources. Generic is nothing but user-defined data source. Data sources are of three types: transaction data, master data attributes, and master data texts. Similar to HANA. You see, transaction data, we create an analytic view, master data attributes, texts, and hierarchies. We create attribute views. So similar to that, data sources are classified: transaction, master data attributes, and text. So why should I create a transaction data? You see here, in this table, we have jet VV060. So we have amount related data. So in a table, when you have amount related data or quantity related data, then we create transaction data source. So I'll go back, transaction data source. I'll select this table underscore DS and click create. So what is the step we are doing here? We're creating a data source. To this data source, we need to apply application component. Like in HANA, information views are grouped based on packages. Here, data sources are grouped based on application components. So this data source belongs to which application? I'll click show list of values, expand SAP R by 3, expand CO, under CO expand PA, and profitability analysis COPA. IO is nothing but master data. COPA IO is the master data. So you can assign to different applications like LO, logistics. Then you can assign to sales and distribution. So basically all these are different applications to which I can associate the data source. So I'm working on COPA, profitability analysis. So I'll double click on this. I assign this data source to this application. Short description. I'll copy the data source name and paste in short description, a medium and long description. And finally give the table name. So this is where we associate table to the data source associating to a application component, and these are the descriptions. Now once you associate data source to the table and click save, click continue, click save and continue, it is asking for a package. So this is basically used to transport objects. I specify a local object. Basically, we are temporarily saving the created objects in the local object, but later I can change this and associate to a package where I can transport to development, from development to quality, from quality to production. So for now, I'll just take in as local means it's just stored on the local where I cannot transport. Click local object. It stores in $TMP. Click local object. So this is the data source name, and this is the description of the data source. This is extract structure. Extract structure is nothing but the structure that is inherited by the data source from the table. Now how did we get this structure? We got this structure from the table. To extract the structure from the table is known as extract structure. Nothing but I'm basically taking a copy of the structure. I'm taking a copy of the structure, extract structure. So this is the name that system generated for this structure, and click save. Now once you save, data source has been saved successfully. So what we done here, we created a data source name. To this data source we associate a table. Once we associate a table to the data source, there is a structure generated which is known as extract structure. If we double click on this structure, double click on the structure, you see this is only a structure. This is only a structure. It is not the table. The difference between a table and a structure is like a view, which is only a container without content. Table is container with content. So what are we going to do with this structure? This is nothing but the metadata, only the container information. So whatever the structure which is known as the extract structure, where I have inside the data source, table has the structure. I take this structure to the data source. This data source, when I move to BW, whatever the structure that is inherited from table, the same structure will take a copy to BW. Because I would like to get copy here, I copy from here and I move to BW. So just to move to BW, I take a copy of the table and move to BW. So that is nothing but the extract structure. I'll go back, click back. So in order to test whether this data source is working or not, click data source, click test extraction, test it, click test extraction, click continue. In order to test, click execute. Start extraction. Once we start extraction, here we see 5 data records selected. 5 data records selected. So where did these 5 data records come from? These 5 data records came from the table. Click continue. Click ALV grid. So how did we get this data? At the runtime. Only at the runtime we got this data. It is not permanently stored. It is just displaying the data from table in runtime for this data source. Because data source is only a structure which does not contain any data. It's just like a view, it is showing data in runtime. So the test is successful. I'll click back and back and back. So this step concludes creating of data source. The next is we need to replicate data source from ECC to BW. To replicate, first we need to check RFC, remote function call. Whether we have the RFC between ECC and BW, we need to check. In order to check, let us go to the T code RSA1, click enter. Click on source systems. Click on source system. So this is the RFC connection. Connection to the source system. Right click, click check. Right click and check. So once you click on check, it says source system is inactive. It means RFC connection is failed. So what I can do here is just try to restore. I'll restore the connection. Do you really want to restore myself system? Yes. Just give me 2 minutes. I'm just checking on this connection. Just give me another 1 minute. Just. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm unable to check system is getting stuck, so I'm unable to check. So I'll see in the I'll see this offline why the issue is coming, but for now I just proceed the session. So what I'm going to do now, let's assume that a data source is already replicated to BW. We created a new data source. So instead of taking a new data source, we just assume that this data source is already in BW for now. Tomorrow I'm going to show you again how to replicate once I check in offline. But for now we continue the exercise assuming that this data source is already in BW. So I'll go back to BW. I'll go back to BW RSA1 and click enter. So now we're inside the BW. So inside the BW, so this is the RFC connection, which is T90 CLNT090. This is the name of the source system. So let us double click on source system. Let us double click on the source system. So once we double click on source system, to replicate data sources, we have to expand the application component. Once you expand the application component, here you see controlling, expand controlling. We see profitability analysis, COPA. Expand profitability analysis. So once I right click on this profitability analysis and click replicate metadata. So once I click on here, you see I associate data source to COPA. You see in the source system, on the ECC system, if you go to RS02, give the data source name, click display. So where did I associate this data source to? COPA. So the same application component is available on the BW system. Please see COPA. So I'll right click on this and click replicate metadata. Once I right click and replicate metadata, the data sources will replicate to this application component. So all these are existing data sources that are replicated in such manner. So once you click replicate, now there is the screen that is in the pop-up. Replicate metadata. So once you click continue, you just have to click continue. Once you click continue, the data source will start to replicate now. So from where does it replicate? From ECC, the data source will come to BW. So in this way, when the RFC connection is working, when it is in the good condition, then this data source will be created on the BW system, and it will be shown something like this. It will be shown something like this. So once the data source is in BW, the next step that we need to do is activate the data source. You need to activate. So how do we activate the data source once it is in the BW? Once it's in the BW, I'll just show you how to activate. Let me create another session. Let us create one more session. And again type RSA1, data warehousing workbench. So instead of taking these data sources, I'll take some other data source which is already available. So let us take this data source, which is 2LIS underscore 11 underscore VAHDR. These data sources are known as standard data sources. And the data source that we created, those data sources are known as custom data source. So based on the business requirement, I'm going to create my own data source that is known as custom. Custom data sources are created in the T code RS02. That's what we created. You see, these are standard. means which are provided by SAP. Like in HANA, there are standard information views that are provided by SAP. We can create our own information view. So in the same way, these data sources are given by SAP. And these data sources, when SAP has given, these are known as business content data sources. Business content. SAP gives content, predefined content. SAP develops this data source. They give predefined content. This predefined content is known as business content. So I just double click on this data source. Double click. Once you double click, here you see there is a change button. Click on the change button. Here you see there is a symbol called activate. Click on activate. So once you click on activate, the data source is already active. Activate anyway and click yes. Once you activate this data source and click yes, at this point of time, there is a table that is generated by system, which is known as PSA table. So you see there is a bottom PSA table. At the bottom you see PSA table. So that table is being generated now. So once we activate this data source, what is the table that is created by system? PSA. So PSA is the inbound layer of data source. PSA is the inbound layer of data source. So let us go back. So it's still activating. Data source is active because this is already active. Just to show again, I'm trying to reactivate. But for the new data sources, which are new, we need to activate. So let this activate. So once it activates, usually it doesn't take this much time. So when the activation is going on, So I continue. Let this continue. So I'll create session. So basically, now once we get this data source, once you activate, PSA table is generated. Okay, now this is part 1. So part 1 of the exercise. So part 1 of the exercise is, until we get data source to BW, activate the data source, PSA table generated. So from now, we got an object from source to BW, data source. Now based on this data source, so we'll move on to part 2 of the exercise. So based on the replicated data source. So now when I replicated a data source, this data source contains how many columns? Let us see. When we replicated this data source, when we replicated this data source, this data source contain RSO2, enter. Click display. This data source contain how many columns? So all these are the columns of the data source. So for example, you have around, so you have 6 columns. You have 6 columns inside the data source. So these 6 columns that are inside this data source, these 6 columns which are inside the data source, so you have 6 columns inside the data source. So for these 6 columns, how many info objects we need? How many info objects? How many info objects we need? For every column we have, we require one info object. So these are known as info objects in BW. And these are known as fields on the source system. The source system field, you see here, these are known as fields. Fields of the source system. For every field that you have on the source system, this field is known as info object. So 6 fields, so 6 info objects. Again, these info objects are again how many chars and how many key figure. How many characteristics and how many key figures. Characteristics are those which contain master data. Key figures are containing amount and quantity related data. The how many has amount and quantity related data? So these 4 columns have amount and quantity related data, whereas both these columns have master data. Both these columns have master data and all these 4 columns have transaction data. So we need to create an info area. So on the part 2 exercise, what we are doing is we are creating the metadata on the BW system. What are we doing? We are creating the structures on the BW. Until now what we have done is we only got data source from ECC to BW. So now we are building these containers. We are creating containers which can store data. We are creating containers which can store data. The basic building block to create containers. To create a wall, we need a brick. Collection of bricks is nothing but wall. Collection of info objects is nothing but data warehouse. You're creating the data warehouse using these info objects. Like these are bricks to the wall. These are basic building blocks. So we need to classify these info objects, whether these belong to master data or these belong to transaction data. And the first step, so what is the first step in HANA? The first step in HANA is to create a package. The first step in BW is to create an info area. Info area is similar to package. So let's go to BW. So the transaction code is RSA1. I create a session. Enter the T code RSA1. Click enter. Click on info objects. Click on info objects. This is called the root node. Right click on the root node and click create info area. Click on create info area. Provide the area name. The area name is JED ECC COPA data. So I'm basically giving ECC COPA data is the name of the area. So this info area we are working for controlling profitability analysis. I'm creating a custom info area. So we need to start with Z or Y. Click continue. Step number 1, how we create a package in HANA. In BW we create an info area. So this is known as the info area. So info area is used to group info providers. So what is the use of package? Packages are used to group information views. Packages are used to group information views. Info areas are used to group info providers. Info areas are used to group info providers, where packages are used to group information views. Under an info area, you can create catalog to create characteristics, catalog to create key figures. So both these characteristics are at this catalog. So all these 4 key figures are at this catalog. The info area is used to group info providers, but to create these info providers, we need catalog. Now, what is a catalog? Catalog is a basket to hold info objects. Like how you have basket to, so for example, you have a fruit basket to hold fruits. Like you have vegetable baskets to hold vegetables. Like that, there's a basket to hold characteristics. To group these characteristics, we have a catalog. To group key figures, we have another catalog. So all the info objects of type characteristics. So these are info objects what of type characteristics are kept in catalog. All the key figures are kept in a different catalog. So what I'm going to do now, excuse me, we're going to start to create a catalog. So how do we create a catalog? So in HANA, we remember under one info area, can you create another info area? Like sub package. Right click on the info area, create another info area. Just like a package. Click continue. So one info area under another info area, right click on the info area, create info object catalog. Click continue. How many types of catalogs? One is char, the other one is the key figure. So let us create the info object catalog ZIOC. Info object catalog for chars. I'm giving the name info object catalog for COPA. Just click create. Click create. I'm creating info object catalog for chars. Click activate. So here we have a catalog under info area. I create another catalog. Create info object catalog again. Create info object catalog again. And this one I'm going to create for key figures. ZIOC underscore KF means key figure. Select key figures. Select key figure. Click create. Click create and click activate. So I did not give the description for this. That's why it displays the technical name. So if you want to change the description, right click on this. Right click on this. Change description. I can change the description to info object catalog for COPA key figures. Click continue. And click activate. So we have both the catalogs now. One catalog, double click on the catalog. One catalog to hold key figures. and the other catalog to hold the characteristics. Now, let us right click on each of the catalog. Click Create Info Object. So now we start to create the 6 info objects, or based on the requirement I'm going to create these info objects. So click on Create Info Object. So what is the info object I need to create here? Now here you see we would like to create an info object which is ZBUKRS. So this info object is of type character. We're creating a characteristic info object for BUKRS. So let us give ZBUKRS and click Continue. I'm giving the technical name and this is the description. I can give the description, company code. This is company code ID. So you give the technical name and the description and click Continue. So once we click Continue, a data type. So what is the type of data? So how do you know what should be the data type and what should be the length? We just follow a source system. So in the source system, that is on the ECC table, the field BUKRS data type is char, length is 20. I just follow them. Whatever the data types and length I have on the source system, I would specify, I go back and specify same char, and the length is 20, and click Activate. So similar fashion, we need to create all these info objects. We need to repeat the same step again and again to create for other info objects. Now this object is being activated. So now ZBUKRS is active. Again, let us right click on the catalog again, click Create Info Object, and here let us give ZVKORG. So this is what the second one. You see, we are creating the second one. Second one is also character, and these characters are grouped under catalog character. So click Continue. So what's the data type? Refer to the source system table. VKORG is char, length is 10. I'll go back to BW. Char, the length is 10. I'll activate. So if you want, you can change the description. Sales org, sales organization. Once you change the description, click Activate again. So this is the technical name, and these are the descriptions. Now we created 2 under catalogs. Rest of the key figures Let us create under catalog key figure. So I'll go back again to catalog key figure. Excuse me. Right click on the catalog for key figure. Click create info object. Now these are key figures. So the first key figure here is ZVV010. 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 Gross revenue. Click create. Continue. This is a key figure of type amount. The key figure of type amount. Click activate. Sorry. Amount needs to have currency associated. So we need to provide what currency you want to associate to this amount. I would like to associate USD, United States dollars. Gross revenue, you want to see in which currency? I want to see in USD and click activate. So here we have a key figure. So please see the triangle in the front, square at the back is the character. Square at the front, triangle at the back is the key figure. Two triangles and two square, this is catalog. And this is a key figure. Right click on the catalog, create info object, give the measure ZVV070. ZVV070, which is sales deductions. Click continue. Of type amount, fixed currency is USD, and click activate. Click activate. So here you have the sales deduction. So ZBUKRS, ZVKORG, ZVV010, and ZVV070. So we have two characteristics and two key figures. Key figures are nothing but measures in HANA, and characteristics are attributes. So all that I have created now is one info area, two catalogs. Each of the catalog has two info objects of type characteristics and two info objects of type key figures. So rest of them I don't want to create, because this is requirement. These objects are sufficient for my requirement. So you have the other ones in the table, like 80 and 90, which I don't require, so I'm not creating them. So once we have these info objects ready in the catalogs, the info objects are ready in the catalog. Now we need to start to build info providers. We need to start building the info provider. So where are these info providers? You see, this is one info provider called DSO. Info provider is nothing but a provider which provides the information. Provider of an information. This provides information. This provides information. a group of objects, collection of objects like DSO, info cube. These are info providers. So now we need to start to create these info providers. Now we have bricks called info objects. Now to create a wall called DSO, we completed this collection of info objects. By using this, I'm going to create the DSO. So what is a data store object? A data store object is an object that stores data in a very detailed fashion. This is a two-dimensional object which can store data in a very detailed fashion. So let us go back. Let us go back. To create a DSO, we need to click on Info Provider. You see, these are information providers. Click on Info Provider, and these are DSOs. You see, this symbol is a DSO. This symbol is a cube. Cubes create analytic views in HANA. DSOs also create analytic views in HANA. So tomorrow we're going to see how we can create, you see here, this is our info area. We don't see any info providers in our info area. If you click on the info objects, you see info objects. But in the info provider, we only see the info area. So we need to right click on the info area and click create data store object. So this we continue tomorrow to create info providers, to create transformation, to create DTP, to transfer data, and finally generate a report in BW in tomorrow's session. And then once we see this flow, then we see how DXE affects the current flow. Once you implement the DXE, how it is going to affect the existing flow and how it is going to get data to HANA. That is in the part 3 session. So part 1 is to get data source to BW. Part 2, to build the metadata in BW. Part 3, how DXE can be implemented to an existing flow which is already moving data to the BW system. So that is for today's session. So let me conclude today's session. In today, we're creating a data source in RSO2. We replicated data source to the BW. Once we activate, PSA table is created. We started to create info area, info object catalogs, info objects. Based on these info objects, I'm going to create info providers in tomorrow's session. Participants may have any questions. Please type in your question. I can answer your questions. So here we have a question. Today's scenario was an embedded BW. Are the transaction codes same in standalone BW? Yes. Transaction codes are same in standard BW also. tomorrow means, I mean to say on Monday, yes. Tomorrow is Saturday and Sunday, and tomorrow means it's on Monday session. Next question is, how can we replicate standard SAP tables too? We cannot replicate standard tables. Standard tables are associated to standard data sources. So in BW, we can never replicate a table from ECC to BW. BW cannot read tables directly from ECC. The only way it can communicate to a table on the ECC is via data source. So there is an intermediate object that can connect to ECC table, and that object is known as the data source. Certification books are available for both SP9 and SP10. So you can read, both the books are available in the Dropbox. SP10 materials are available and SP9 materials are available. If you're writing 142, then the book is SPS 9. If you're writing SPS 10, then you need to, so you already have in the Dropbox for both these books. So we have a separate folder for SPS 10 books called HANA Materials, HANA SPS 10. The next is, where is HANA involved in all this? So I'll show you. HANA is a sidecar scenario. So this is a sidecar scenario. Only in the part 3 we can see how the HANA get involved. Because currently I'm building a solution which is already existing. Only after we have existing, we convert to HANA. So in a sidecar scenario, HANA comes in the later stage. So HANA is a new solution. Currently we are building an existing solution. How HANA can embed it to BW, that we see in Monday session. So when we are next question, when we are able to send everything to HANA directly from ECC, why do you need BW system still? The reason is customers have invested a lot of money in BW in building old solution. They invested time, they invested money. So SAP want to seamlessly integrate BW to HANA so that whatever the investment that they have made is not gone waste. So they wanted to have integration with BW. So BW is only an intermediate solution, but the future solutions are based on native HANA. Because you have more than 14,000 customers who are using BW. For those customers who are using BW who have invested money, time, SAP wanted to have an intermediate solution called BW on HANA, wherein you can leverage the capabilities of HANA for the existing data flows that you have built in the past. But without that also we can go ahead and create new flows. It is only for the existing customers. Only existing customers will use DXC. Customers who go for new implementation without having BW, they don't need DXC at all. So next question, without BW background, I don't think we'll get a chance to work on this scenario. I do understand, but at least to clear the certification, the knowledge is necessary. I know you may not working or may not working is a different case, but at least we have to learn for the certification, at least to clear the certification, because at least you will have 3 to 4 questions on DXC. And there's a weightage given on DXC, so that's why we focus on this part. So what will happen if we append a structure in VBAK? If you append a structure in VBAK, we can get the same structure to the data source. So whatever the structure you get into VBAK, you still can get those structures into the data source. So you have to enhance data source. Enhancing of ECC tables, you need to enhance the BW. So whatever the enhancements that we do on the source system, because enhancement is something which is specific to business. SAP given standard functionality. To enhance the existing structures on the source system, we have to also enhance the data source. To enhance the data source, we have CMOD, SMOD. So based on these enhancements, we can get these columns to the BW system. What is Business Suite? What is SAP Business Suite? So Business Suite is nothing but collection of applications. Collection of application like CRM, SRM, SCM, PLM, ECC, supply relationship management, supply chain management, product lifecycle management, customer relationship management. All this group of applications together is known as suite of, it's nothing but suite of applications. Sorry, suite of applications. Suite of applications is known as Business Suite. So can we transfer data from ECC to HANA by using HTTP web without BW? No. We cannot transfer data without BW to HANA. Sorry, without BW, we cannot transfer data from ECC to HANA. We need to have BW because BW is a middle layer. BW acts like a middle layer to initiate the data transfer. So who is the which is the component which initiates the data transfer in DXC? It is BW info package. Info package is an object that initiates the data transfer. If info package initiates the data transfer, then for DXC, BW is mandatory. Without BW, we cannot implement DXC. So these are the questions we have. So let's stop the session for now, and we're going to meet on Monday to discuss the rest of the exercise. Thank you everyone. Have a good morning and good night. And have a nice weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Thank you.